Hello and welcome to more history stuff. Now for this video, I'm going to take my glasses off, okay, because I am aware that there's a bit of a glare on these lenses and it can be a bit distracting. Some people have told me that it's the reflection is a little bit too distracting. So let's see how we get on without these. I'll be blind as a bat, but that's okay. I just have to look vaguely in this direction. So in the past few days I've been talking about other people's books and articles and their research, their work. Well, now I'm going to start talking about mine a little bit, okay? I've got a new book coming out at the end of this month, 31st of March, published by Pen and Sword. You can see the cover here, which I think is very nice, and the title, of course, Rebellion Against Henry III, the Disinherited Montfortians, 1265 to 74. So, what is this all about? And who are the Disinherited Montfortians, or the Disinherited? Well, the 1260s is a time of great political upheaval and civil war in England. And in 1265, in August 1265, you had the Battle of Evesham. This very bloody and notorious battle. One chronicler described it as a murder rather than a battle. And he called it that because lots of noblemen were killed on the rebel side. Simon de Montfort and many of his followers, at least 36, are killed on the field of battle, if not more. And this is very unusual for the time because nobles don't expect to be killed in battle like common soldiers. They expect to be taken for ransom. But this is strange and unusual circumstances. The royalists, led by Edward and the Earl of Gloucester, come to this decision that the only way to sort of try and end this civil war that's been rumbling on for several years is to knock out the leaders, to just wipe them out. I suppose you could say it's a bit like cutting off the heads of a hydra, or killing the shepherd and then hoping his sheep will all run away. And this might have worked if it hadn't been for this policy that the king and his advisors decided to implement in the weeks and months after Evesham, whereby all of the surviving baronial rebels and some men who don't seem to have been particularly involved at all, they don't seem to have been guilty of any kind of wrongdoing, are disinherited. Their lands are taken away from them and redistributed amongst the king's supporters. This happens because the king and his sons, they need to reward their followers for all the loyal service they've given in the past 2 years. That's perfectly standard, makes sense. But it's done on such a scale and without a great deal of discretion, and it's quite chaotic as well. It's not terribly well organised, and what you end up with, the result is that a significant percentage of landholders in England are deprived of their lands, left quite literally destitute, and with not much option other than to go back into rebellion to try and get their lands back. And these men have been lumped together and called the Disinherited, which is a very sort of convenient catch-all title. They tend to be a little bit passed over, a little bit neglected. There's been no real full-length study of the Disinherited since a thesis in the 1950s, which wasn't even published. They are mentioned quite frequently in general histories of this era, but they're a little bit of an afterthought. Most accounts of this particular civil war, they go up to Evesham, and then what happens afterwards is it's kind of treated as an epilogue. For instance, one historian, William Henry Blow, if I pronounce that correctly, he remarked, "It is unnecessary to detail all the scattered hostilities that plagued the kingdom afterwards, after Evesham." So, you know, according to William, that's just unnecessary, which, you know, is quite amusing. Basically means that he's lost interest and he can't be bothered to describe all this stuff, which I think is unfair, really. What happens is that the Civil War continues for another 2 years after Evesham, and it's not much less serious or less intense. There's a lot of actions fought, and for a time, for a relatively short time, it actually looks like the Disinherited are winning. They managed some quite spectacular successes, which I'll I don't want to reveal too much because it's all in the book, of course, but I might talk about them in future videos in the days leading up to the release. And it doesn't really end there, or at least this is what I argue in my book. When the war finally peters out, it's not that simple. You can't just sort of draw a line and go, okay, we'll just forget about that. So many men have died. There's been so many battles, a lot of lasting bitterness and a political upheaval. This doesn't just vanish overnight, and the issues and the consequences of this war, they keep sort of resurfacing in the following decades. And I argue it doesn't really resolve itself for generations. So I thought it was a topic well worth writing about. And this is just a short introductory video. So you can all, anyone who's watching this, that is, you can all get a look at the cover and some idea of what the book is about. And then I'll go into more sort of detail and more explanation in future videos, and hopefully drum up a bit of interest. Yeah, and try and get used to looking at the screen without my glasses on. It's quite strange, and I probably look quite strange as well. So that's it for now, very short, and I'll hopefully talk to you later.